Hi, welcome to another episode of the I Heal, We Heal podcast. This is the beginning of the second season. And if you've tuned in at any point up until now, you know that the first season was all about Melissa, her holistic cancer healing journey, and the experiences and themes that came around, that healing journey. So now we are sort of turning the mic over to other storytellers in this collaboration with a very special project, the Heart2Heart Compassionate Listening Project, allowing this platform to be used by other storytellers to share their experiences on a variety of themes and topics. Today, I'll be introducing Susan. Susan and I met at a Jacksonville Sangha. Recently, she introduced this sort of like project idea, and it came at the perfect time. And this is what I mean with divine timing, like everything comes when it needs to. It was literally, and I'm not even sure if Susan knows this, but I was plotting on my, second season for the podcast. And I was like, Divine, please guide me. What is it that I need to sort of do with the second season? What themes and topics or experiences do I, need to share? And so I was literally in this like time frame of things, of thinking. And then at Sangha a couple weeks ago, Susan was like, oh, I have this compassionate listening project idea. Like, if anybody's interested, reach out. And I literally texted her right after, and I'm like, let's do it. Like, let's do it. It is perfect. It fits the I Heal, We Heal vision, which is, again, when one heals, we all heal because the interconnectedness of all of us. Compassionate listening is a very powerful practice that I have been harnessing within myself. It basically relieves suffering, but also allows others to resonate with these experiences and stories because we all are one. And when one shares, we can resonate with some sort of aspect or even shift our own personal perspectives of different things. I believe it's vital to shifting the collective understanding of what listening is. So yeah, without further ado, Susan, please introduce yourself. Thank you for being here today. Let us know a little bit more of how this project came to be.
Okay, well, that's a long time coming for sure. And I definitely appreciate Melissa's energy because I've been thinking about it. I've been trying to figure out how I can make it happen, but it's so helpful to have someone else to kind of push you along. I'm a physician assistant. I've been a physician assistant for 33 years. I worked with patients that spoke mostly Spanish the first part of my career. And they would say, oh, I feel so much better. You understand me. And I really didn't understand them. I just took the time to listen and validate what they were saying. And so I could see the power of how that was healing. At the same time, I went to Quaker school undergraduate. And so I was a Quaker for about 20 years and then switched over, well, not completely, but now practicing Buddhism. And one of the precepts of both Quakers and Buddhists is compassionate listening, that by listening to the other person, you relieve their suffering. How that works is you just give them space to listen to themselves. And the answers are within. We really do know what we need. We know the answers to our own questions, but having someone else to kind of birth that knowledge is helpful just by listening. And particularly Thich Nhat Hanh during the 60s, 70s, and then died January 2022. And anyways, he was a peace activist. And part of how he created peace was listening to both sides. He was from North Vietnam, but he listened to the North Vietnamese and the South Vietnamese. And so that got him kicked out of the country. He couldn't come back because they both thought he was on the other side because they couldn't understand that you could be both. And so he wound up establishing Plum Village. A lot of what I've learned is studying Thich Nhat Hanh and his teachings. Then also Jean Knudsen, she's now dead, but I met her in Santa Barbara and she had something that she started, which was called the Compassionate Listening Project. And if you want information on that, that's compassionatelistening.org. They were doing more compassionate listening between countries to decrease conflicts. And my thought is to do it more on an individual basis, almost like psychotherapy, because the access to mental health is so limited in the United States. For most things that are causing people pain, you really don't need a psychotherapist. You just need somebody to listen. And so I thought if we could somehow facilitate people just anonymously listening to each other on the podcast, my hope would be that you would hear a story of someone else would share. And that would be like, oh, that's me. And, and you could see yourself in the other person. And there'd be less separation between people and relief of your own suffering, but also between people. That's basically it. You have to have your own space. You have to clear out your own heart before you can be helpful for another person. If you have lots of prejudices and hate and judgment in your own heart, you're going to judge yourself in that way as well as the other person. So clearing that out, learning to love yourself, which is not so easy, and then being able to give that to the other person creates a safe space for that other person so that you can listen and also be protected yourself.
Yes, yes, yes. And so I guess this perfectly connects to what do we hope that listeners take away from this project is the resonance of hearing this other story and being like, wow, I don't know what this person looks like, don't know their age, don't know where they're located, but that part of their story completely resonated with something that I went through. Key part of resonance, connection, and inspiration. We hope that through this project as well, you harness this ability of compassionate listening within you, not listening necessarily to see, oh, what am I going to say next? Or how can I relieve them of suffering and give them, advice or, solutions to their issues? No, just compassionate listening of just listening and just giving them that openness and ability to full-heartedly share without feeling judgment or the need to receive sympathy or advice.
Yeah, I think as a society, it's something we can do to make people happier. Happiness is contagious. And so if people aren't like bogged down in shame, in heartache, then they can be more present for other people and we'll have less violence. One quote I wanted to make, this one's from Jean Knutson, who started the Compassionate Listening Project. She says, perhaps every act of violence is an unhealed wound. The purpose of compassionate listening is healing wounds. And I think that's so true, that hurt people hurt other people, and that goes way back. If we can help people not be hurt, then I think there would be less violence in our cities and in our schools, in our families, and better ways to communicate.
And so what does the engagement for this project look like? We are thinking about doing local pop-up events as well as this, which is the podcast that anybody worldwide can access. So the podcast would be the story sharing. And then for these pop-up events, we will live stream them through the platform Insight Timer. I will include all of these links and information as to how you can find me on Insight Timer, but this is a platform that we'll be using at least to start with. We have our first pop-up event already sort of in the works, and it will be in Jacksonville, Florida at the Riverside Arts Market the very last Saturday, January 25th. And so we plan to be there probably the whole time. I believe it begins at 10 in the morning. And this pop-up event will have a general theme around it that people can come by and just share stories or, a few words. The aim would be to give voice to these stories that remain untold because of shame, fear of judgment, or stigma.
I guess the other thing I'd want to mention is it's a safe space for you to open up and to hear yourself, is what I'd want people to understand. Nobody's going to be trying to fix you or preach to you. It's not a preaching thing. You're speaking to yourself, really. We're just facilitating you listening to yourself. And sometimes I think both of us are open to other expressions and just to see how it goes. It's definitely a work of creativity as well as love.
Yes, exactly that. And I'm already seeing it even with just the podcast. I started it with that in mind of just flowing with the vision. And so this is evident of that, the podcast is growing, is evolving just as me. With that, we are open to collaborations. So if any of this project resonates with you or you want to be involved, even as a storyteller, also, link my information as to my podcast website. If for some reason you're not on the Insight Timer platform, the live will be recorded and then uploaded onto the podcast's YouTube channel. So on YouTube, same way, I Heal, We Heal podcast. So there you'll definitely be able to tune into the pop-up events. As we wrap up, what's one thing that you would want our listeners to remember as they move forward, not only with the season, but following the Heart2Heart project?
I think the thing I would want them to take away is hope and connection, that we so often when we're hurting, isolate, and reaching out and to another person is a step out of your own suffering. And please make use of it, even with your friends. Talk to them. Don't be by yourself. That's it.
Perfect. I love that. And thank you for tuning in to another episode and, the beginning of a new stage for this podcast. We hope to connect with you soon. Stay tuned. Blessings to all. Thank you so much for being here.